Okay, all right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the 2021 Rothberg Catalyzer Prize as part of Startup Yale. Before we get started, I just like to do a land acknowledgement, even though we are virtual, but I still want to acknowledge the land that Yale sits on. So we acknowledge here at Yale that Indigenous peoples and nations, including Mohegan, Mashantucket, Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Scotticoke, Golden Hill Pagussit, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac and other Algonquian-speaking peoples have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now the state of Connecticut. We honor and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these peoples and nations and this land. Now, with that, welcome again to the 2021 Rothberg Catalyzer Prize. I'm Matthew Garn. I'm an innovation fellow here at the Tsai Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale. This is the 5th live pitch event of Startup Yale, and we are thrilled to have you all join us wherever you might be in the world. Jonathan Rothberg, our generous donor of today's prize, initiated this competition at Yale 4 years ago with the goal of igniting young minds to solve the most pressing medical challenges. A big thank you to Jonathan for his support of teams you'll be seeing today and the broader student community here at Yale. In a moment, you'll be seeing 4 fantastic teams compete for the grand prize of $15,000 to the best student-led venture focused on developing an innovative hardware or AI solution to a medical challenge. Here today to select the winners are 5 fantastic judges. Dr. Alyssa Sievert-Jarvie, the clinical data analyst, Ellen Su, the chief product officer at WellLinks, Ellie Tandler, the president and CEO of Affinimart Technologies, Owen K. Cotterer, the chief business officer and co-founder at Detect, and Sharon Mwale, manager at Health Venture. Each team will have 10 minutes to pitch, and then we will open up to judges for Q&A. After we've heard from all 4 finalists, the judges will deliberate to choose a grand prize winner. But the judges aren't the only ones who get to vote for the best team today. We are also asking our audience to choose their top team and award an audience choice prize to the team this morning as well. We'll announce the grand prize winner as well as the audience choice award winner about 20 minutes after all the teams have finished pitching. Additionally, you'll also have time to ask questions to the team. So if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A function, which is if you go down to the bottom of Zoom and hover, there should be a Q&A button where you can type in any questions, and we'll answer those as the judges are deliberating. The first team we'll hear today is Mobile Memory, which is an AI-driven platform that monitors cognitive health using speech-based analytics. They are pioneering a new cost-effective and accessible tool to screen for Alzheimer's disease based on vocal biomarkers. Mobile Memory, the floor is yours as I stop my screen share.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Oh, I'm having some trouble screen sharing.
Try now.
Okay. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Awesome, fantastic. Okay, we can start off with a round of introductions. So my name is Drew Gupta. I'm a first-year medical student as well as a Yale College graduate.
My name is Shreya. I'm currently a first year at Yale College studying neuroscience.
My name is Richard Hausman. I'm currently a first year at Yale College studying statistics and data science.
And I'm Zach LaJoy, and I'm a junior at Brown University studying biomedical engineering.
And we're Mobile Memory, and we're excited to show you what we have to offer today. Imagine if we could prevent Alzheimer's with something as simple as speech. At Mobile Memory, we are working to make this a reality. Our venture is harnessing the power of AI to screen for vocal biomarkers of dementia. All of us know someone who's been affected by this disease. This is what brought our team together. And this is what motivated us to find a better way for early detection so people would not have to experience the same devastation we saw with their own family members. It's no secret that Alzheimer's disease will soon become a healthcare crisis. In the US alone, nearly 6 million people are affected. And by the year 2050, this figure is expected to triple to nearly 18 million people. And you can see this translate into healthcare costs. In the year 2020, Alzheimer's cost the United States about $305 billion, with Medicare mostly picking up the tab. And by the year 2050, estimates project this to increase to as much as $1.1 trillion, essentially causing our healthcare system to collapse. As you can tell, Alzheimer's is about to become a big problem. But what if I told you you could solve this problem by using 30 seconds of speech? My colleague Shreya will explain more.
So today, the problem is that Alzheimer's is often identified too late. Patients only come in when symptoms arise, and this is usually during the mid-dementia stage. However, by this time, irreversible brain damage has already occurred. Patients need an earlier diagnosis so that they can have more control over the course of their disease. Therefore, our goal as a company is to push up this timeline to the mild cognitive impairment stage. This way, patients can have earlier detection, earlier intervention, and improved patient outcomes. And to solve this problem, we're developing an app that detects early signs of dementia by analyzing speech patterns. Our platform consists of two components, the NLP algorithm and the memory bank feature. The natural learning process NLP algorithm is able to analyze the user's speech recordings and determine cognitive health status. The algorithm takes the user's voice as input, breaks it down into speech biometrics, and then outputs a cognitive exam score. If there's any sign of impairment, the user is immediately notified and recommended to see their physician. The second component, the memory bank feature, serves as an audio diary that allows users to record their voice, store it for a later date, and access their memories and share it with loved ones.
The MMSE score, or Mini State Mental Exam, is the current gold standard for identifying and quantifying cognitive decline, and it's a strong indicator of Alzheimer's. However, there are several problems with the test. First of all, it requires a clinician to administer, which means that it's expensive both in terms of financial costs and in terms of time. And then the second issue is that the test decreases in efficacy each time that a patient takes it because the patient adapts to the structure of the test. Recent papers in the field of Alzheimer's screening have been able to predict a person's MMSE score using specific linguistic and acoustic biomarkers, thus sidestepping the need to take the exam completely and sidestepping its problems also. These biomarkers also show significant changes years before the more serious stages of cognitive decline where the disease is currently diagnosed, because people don't take the MMSE exam unless they have identifiable symptoms of cognitive decline currently. Our machine learning team has been able to match the field's state-of-the-art results as shown here, and we have plans to use the recordings obtained from our app and from our user base in the future to develop a proprietary data set and go far beyond what's currently possible. What makes our approach unique is that not only do we use traditional human interpretable linguistic features to predict the MMSE, but we also leverage enormous quantities of non-task specific unlabeled data to build up a latent representation of a person's speech. And then using emerging techniques in deep learning, we can use that latent representation to predict the MMSE score with high accuracy. We also have, as mentioned before, the memory bank feature, which is absolutely critical in maintaining user engagement. And it has three main functionalities: record, retrieve, and reminisce. Users are prompted with a question, they speak for about 30 seconds, the recording is analyzed by the algorithm, their MMSE score is predicted, and then later users can share these recordings with loved ones or just listen to them themselves.
So Richard did a phenomenal job of explaining memory bank, and just to hammer it in, we have a demo to show you today. So once users are logged in, they will be directed to the home screen where they'll be given a set of prompts, as you can see here. And you can simply just swipe through the prompts until you find one you like. And once you've chosen that special prompt, you can press the record button as seen here, and then input your voice. And then once you do that, you can then name the prompt and name the diary accordingly, which will then be stored in the memory bank, as you can see here. And in the back end, our NLP model will be analyzing these audio diaries to output a cognitive score. And as mentioned before, if there's a significant decline detected, we can notify the user and connect them with their physician. So here's our business model. We plan to make this venture a subscription-based service charged to insurance companies like Medicare Advantage, to nursing homes, and to clinical trials, particularly those that are developing novel therapeutics for Alzheimer's. And here's the value we can provide to these entities. We provide the value of saving time, as our app only needs about 30 seconds of speech for the user to record their voice, as opposed to going to the doctor's office and spending about 15 minutes on a cognitive exam. This would also reduce cost, as early diagnosis of Alzheimer's is estimated to save about $36,000 per patient per lifetime, according to the Alzheimer's Association. ER visits and hospitalizations would also be reduced. And finally, you'd have improved patient outcomes, as early detection and appropriate intervention leads to delayed onset of disease, reduced severity, as well as sometimes even preventing the disease from happening in the first place. So here's what our competition looks like. Our competitors include Oral Analytics, Winterlight Labs, Canary Speech, and Sound Health. What's common among us is that we're all using speech analytics to assess an individual's cognitive status. What makes us different from everyone else are two things: a user-friendly interface and accessibility. Our memory bank feature constantly engages with the user to elicit voice recordings and improve user retention, which is currently a problem faced by our competitors, as users and our competitors often would use the app only for a couple of times and then not use it again. Another advantage is that our app will be more widely accessible, as an individual and our other competitors have to be enrolled in a clinical trial in order to use their apps.
The $15,000 prize from Rothberg will be catalytic for our venture, and here's how we plan to use it. We would need $8,000 for data collection, so we can collect and gather data to further train and improve our model. We would then plan to allocate $2,000 for technical services, $2,000 for legal services, $2,000 for beta testing, and $1,000 for marketing. So here's been our journey so far. We first formed our venture in September of 2020. Since then, we've continued to work on the NLP algorithm and the memory bank. We completed the first version of our NLP model in January of 2021 and have plans to finish the our first complete draft of the app by this fall. For the memory bank feature, we plan to launch beta testing in June and then receive user feedback and make fine-tuned adjustments to optimize the user experience. By September, we plan to begin clinical validation to test the accuracy of our model. And after clinical validation, we plan to do a pilot study in hospitals to demonstrate that our app results in long-term cost savings.
We also like to thank our advisors for the expertise they've given us in forming this venture, particularly Colin Foster, who served as our Tsai CITY mentor. So our vision looks like this: less anxiety among family members of those who suffer from dementia, ease of care provided by physicians, and a future where no one has to live a lifetime of memories only to lose them at the end. Thank you for listening.
Great pitch, Mobile Memory. With that, Alyssa, do you want to kick us off with questions?
Sure. Thank you for sharing your vision. It's certainly an enormous unmet need, and being able to diagnose early would provide a ton of value to patients and families. I had a question about what your strategy is in terms of an exit. I appreciated that you outlined some of the competitive landscape, and I would comment that Winterlight has been licensed by Pear Therapeutics, so it's worth checking on how they've advanced their pipeline of digital products. They have 3 of them that are in commercial phase, so that would be just a good benchmark to follow. But I'm wondering if you plan on taking this company forward yourself, or if you are looking for a merger and acquisition or a licensing agreement, because there are other big players in this space. IBM and Pfizer have a collaborative venture working on NLP for Alzheimer's, and they have really existing relationships with the customers that you're targeting, like insurance companies and clinical trialists. So I was wondering if you were planning on trying to partner with some of these bigger players, or if you had a plan for accessing your customers as a small company.
That is a great question. So this is definitely something we've thought about, although admittedly not much since we're pretty early in our formation. But the conversations we did have include just seeing where the venture goes and seeing the traction and the progress we can make. And if we have a significant enough revenue in sales and we think we can offer something uniquely distinct, then we would think of the possibility of a merger and acquisition with these larger entities.
Yeah, great. I would recommend trying to talk to your potential customers as soon as you can to see if there is a way that you could provide a unique value for an insurance company or people running clinical trials at Yale or Harvard or Brown, anywhere where you have connections. Thank you.
Wonderful. Ellen, do you have any questions?
Yeah, well, if you want to talk to Paratherapeutics, the former chief strategy officer for Pear actually just joined Wellings as our CEO in February. So we can definitely chat about that. Yeah, I had a question kind of on the scaling up of the data collection. So I'd be interested to hear a little bit more detail on your strategy for both kind of collecting the data that you need and then kind of ensuring the quality of that data. You know, how much time and effort do you have to put into that as you're having people kind of record those snippets?
Yeah, so how we're thinking about it right now is that we're in the prototyping stage, and our goal is to basically gather data sets from other institutions and then use those data sets to further train our model until it gets to the point which it's very accurate, and then enter our model through clinical trials to ensure that our model can work with real patients. And then after that, I think with the pilot study, that's where we plan to do additional data collection to ensure that not only can this app result in healthcare savings, but gather that additional data to continue training the model and making it even more accurate.
And quick follow-up questions. Have you guys identified any kind of grants or other kind of non-dilutive funding for those studies?
Yeah, so the non-dilutive funding we've gathered so far are from other universities, as we've won pitch competitions at Harvard and Brandeis. But we're definitely open to exploring more opportunities such as that. And I think even there's something called like the NIH Small Business Grants that we're looking at right now as well.
Cool. Wonderful.
Thank you.
And then Ellie, do you have any questions as well?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I enjoyed your presentation. Thank you for sharing that with us. You had mentioned in your when you spoke about the competitors, one of the issues was that the patients tended to use it once or twice and then stop using it. And I was just wondering with yours, especially since yours, I believe, relies on sort of the repetitive recording of their voices and the gradual either degradation of their speech or what have you, the data. How do you plan to not only engage your patients, but continue to have them use your application so that you can gather this information and keep compliance in an area where it sounds like that tends to be a struggle?
Yeah, so in terms of engaging our patients, so I think that's where the beta testing really comes into play, where we can put out the memory bank portion of our app and then see how that's received by our users. And then once they give us feedback, we can fine tune the adjustments to optimize user experience. Another thing we were considering is possibly making this a interactive platform in which users can record their recordings and then send it to others and to see their interaction, sort of as a type of chat room. In terms of compliance, we definitely understand that and definitely consider that a top priority. So one thing we're thinking about is choosing a cloud computing platform that is HIPAA compliant to store all these voice recordings.
Okay, thanks. And then just a separate sort of aside, and I don't know if you can answer this now, but an idea around what you think financial projections for your business model would look like would be helpful, as a investor's perspective in terms of what the opportunity could be. That is, okay, so that's helpful. So in trying to understand what your overall revenues, what your aspirations of how much you plan to grow to, I think will help. And I think that kind of dovetails in with Alyssa's question on sort of what your end goal is, because that will also help understand, are you looking to grow, to hundreds of millions of dollars, and how do you plan on getting there? I think this is a good start in terms of your cost, but just an idea of magnitude on what you think this venture is and sort of where, at what point you either plan to look for partnerships or an exit or to build would be helpful.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you bring up. We'll definitely have to see how it goes. So we have the costs outlined here. For potential revenue, we definitely have to interview some of our customers and seeing their willingness to pay, at what price they would like to pay for an app like ours. And then from there, we can make financial projections and then see how the venture goes. And if it tends to be successful, then really consider doing a merger and acquisition.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Great job, Mobile Memory. Thank you for pitching. We're going to move on to our next pitch, which will be PF Glucose. So with that, PF Glucose, the floor is yours.
Hello, can everyone hear me? I'm not sure. If this is
Yep,
working.
we can hear you and see the screen. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'll start now. So hi, my name is Rohan Alwalia, and I'm the founder of PF Glucose. Over my life, I've given over 3,000 finger pricks, and every finger prick is just as painful as the last. I have to prick my finger between 6 and 10 times a day, and I constantly don't want to do this because of the pain associated with the current glucose monitors on the market. That's why I founded PF Glucose, to build a portable, pain-free glucose monitor that is able to detect glucose non-invasively. We want to create a glucose monitor that increases our mission is to increase the comfort of the current glucose monitors. We want to build a device that is not only affordable, accurate, reliable, but most importantly, painless for the millions of diabetics worldwide. The current methods are currently invasive, painful, and inconvenient, such as the finger stick measurement that leads to scar tissue, or the subcutaneous detectors that leads to long-term complications like lipohypertrophy. The issue with these current methods is that they lead diabetics to check their fingers less than they should have, which can lead to a lot of long-term complications, such as diabetic nephropathy, neuropathy, and nerve damage. We at PF Glucose want to help the 34 million people in the United States that have diabetes and the more than 450 million people worldwide with our innovative technology. Right now, we're aiming to enter the one-time measurement market, which consists of 2/3 of the total diabetes monitoring market, but we have plans to enter the continuous market in the coming years. So who is going to be able to take PF Glucose to the next level? This is our team. We have a diverse set of research, technical, clinical, and business expertise to make our solution a reality. We're currently partnered with the Yale lab and have a clinical advisor to continue our research and make sure that PF Glucose becomes a reality. But now let me explain what is PF Glucose's non-invasive solution. As this is a crowded space, we have a patent-pending multidisciplinary solution that combines fields of optics, engineering, and artificial intelligence to create a unique solution to this issue. So I think the best way to explain this solution is kind of break it down into a couple of phases. So the first phase, detection. Essentially, what we were able to do is find 940 nanometers, which is a glucose-specific wavelength, which that was able to detect difference in glucose concentrations in various types of solutions. But when we were testing this in our human, in myself and other patients, we found that the accuracy of this device is not as accurate as we should have. That's where we came up with our innovative technology of what we call modulation. And essentially, modulation is this idea of moving the glucose molecules closer to the detector. As you can see on the screen, we have all these glucose molecules in our finger. The idea that our reverse iontophoresis or modulation technology is to move these glucose molecules towards the detector. This is kind of similar to kind of counting the amount of kids in a school, I would like to say. If you were to go to one classroom and use that classroom as an estimate for the entire school, that would be an inaccurate estimate. However, if you were to go and move every kid to the gym and see from a higher angle get a better estimate of how many kids are in the school, that would be a lot more accurate. That's kind of what we do. We try to increase the density of the glucose molecules at the detector here. And then by doing that, we were able to actually reduce the impact of a lot of confounding variables. Essentially, now that we've done these physical changes, we had to implement an artificial intelligence algorithm that was able to process these changes and create a result or a correlation between the glucose values and the values that we get from our monitor. Our artificial intelligence algorithm uses particle swarm and ridge regularization techniques to improve the accuracy and best fit our model. So we've done some initial testing on a patient 1, myself, and we figured out kind of how accurate our device could be. We believe that based off our initial trial, we were 95% of our values were provided that were clinically accurate, which means that they were within the 7 to 10% range that you can see here. This graph essentially corresponds the reference, which is the glucose concentration with the finger stick measurement, and the prediction, what our algorithm was able to do. Over a 7-day period, we were able to get X amount of data, and we were able to find that our device is 95% accurate. But we've also found that our device has a mean absolute relative difference of 14, which is significant because the devices on the market currently have a range between 9 and 18. So this means that our device will be consistent in today's industry standards. So where is PF glucose kind of in the market? Currently, we believe that we've surpassed the competitors in the current market because we provide a solution that people with diabetes desperately need. We reduce the pain, cost, and we increase the duration with the current available methods, providing similar accuracy to a lot of the devices on the market. But we believe that we're providing a better alternative for those with diabetes, and it addresses the issues that we highlighted earlier with the current devices. But our main competition is in the R&D landscape, where there are 3 main companies working to also develop a non-invasive glucose monitor. While all have innovative solutions, we believe that our solution is one, the most accurate, but also has the fastest delivery date, as they are all pushing for 2023. So what makes PF glucose better than the competitors? So I think we can kind of highlight this in 4 ways. The first thing is our better accuracy, less invasive, and cheaper technology. That basically means our modulation technology is unique and has never been done before in any aspect of biophotonics. Therefore, we believe that we have a unique aspect to basically increase our accuracy while keeping it truly non-invasive, like some of our competitors aren't able to do. We also believe that we built all our prototypes in less than $10. And that means that we believe that when we do manufacturing, the cost of building our device will be a lot less than a lot of our other devices. We also believe that we have limited FDA approval process because we've talked to a couple of FDA regulatory consultants and have found that we only need a 510(k) approval process, but we already have companies that we can piggyback off, such as Google Watch in 2006 and pulse oximeters throughout time. But also with this unique proprietary technology, we also have multiple other devices in our pipeline, which are currently working like a continuous non-invasive watch and a patch that will also help us break into the continuous aspect of this market. So now what's the plan for PF glucose in 2022 and 2021? Currently, we're iterating our prototype and validating our technology. And soon we'll start doing more advanced validation studies with the research lab at Yale. But by the end of the year and by February next year, we're aiming to start clinical trials and optimizing our algorithm, where we're able to start raising more funding and continue our regulatory processes. We hope that this gold standard clinical trial in February of next year will be able to provide enough data to the FDA, as they've previously sort of mentioned to us. So How will Rothberg help us take PF glucose to the next stage? Essentially, what we can think about this is I've kind of broken it down into three main sections. The first section is device development. So we're going to continue to iterate our prototype and develop new hardware that will able to reduce the impact of our co-founding variables. As I mentioned, this is the biggest issue with the current non-invasive glucose monitoring market, is that there are other molecules that seem to mess with the readings. But we have innovative solutions for these, and we're going to spend $7,500 of the money there. The next 5,000 are going to be spent in regulatory processes. We're going to start communications with the FDA, send a pre-sub, make sure that we're making our path correct, because that clinical trial in February of next year needs to be able to provide enough data to the FDA that can take our device to the market. And finally, we're going to spend the last $2,500 on collecting a much more data for our algorithm. We need to collect data from tissue samples, animal tissue, and other regions to improve our artificial intelligence algorithm. Essentially, we'll be able to use Rothberg to kind of catalyze our project and move it forward to the next stage, and we'll be able to get one step closer to the market, which will help millions of diabetics worldwide. So, what is PF glucose to summarize it? We are a company working to build the first non-invasive glucose monitor that is affordable, convenient, comfortable, and most important, painless. We want to create a device that's painless for the millions of diabetics worldwide. Thank you, and now I'll take questions.
Wonderful pitch. Great job, Rohan. With that, Sharon, do you want to kick us off with questions?
Yeah, wonderful pitch. I definitely enjoyed learning more about the science behind what it is you guys are doing. So I have two questions, kind of related to one another. What FDA approval process are you guys going through? And along those lines, how long are you guys looking at in terms of roadmap to get this to market after the process that you guys are targeting?
Yeah, so so I think the FDA process that we've talked to a couple of consultants, and there are two processes that we could go through. We could go through one, which is called breakthrough technology, which takes a longer period of time. I think the time frame for that is like 3 or 4 years. But the one that we're targeting is the 510(k) approval process, because we have two devices that we can quote unquote piggyback our device off of. The GlucoWatch, which was released in 2006, was a device technology that used purely reverse iontophoresis to detect glucose, but that device failed. That's why we're using reverse iontophoresis in a smaller sense to actually modulate the glucose, as I mentioned earlier. And the second thing is that since we're using near infrared, there are a lot of pulse oximeters on the market that we're allowed to piggyback off. So we hope that we'll start the FDA approval process in December of this year, kind of starting to talk to the FDA and making sure that our clinical trial is on the right path. And basically, after the gold standard clinical trial, it will take the regular amount of time for an FDA to approve a 510(k), which could be between 1 and 2 years.
And the second, just to clarify, you guys are looking at probably getting to market in 2023, 2024.
Yeah, that's our goal. Yeah, early 2023.
Great. Alyssa, do you have any questions?
Yeah, great pitch. Clear unmet need. I have a quick question and then maybe a longer one. The quick question is about how on your competitor's slide, you showed that the Abbott device, I think it's Gluco Libre, has Freestyle Libre, has pain associated. Can you talk about how you determined that that device entails pain for the user and your device will not?
Yeah, so the Freestyle Libre is this device that you actually have to inject your arm and keep it on a patch for 14 days. I've actually used the Libre. So that device is the exact same as the Dexcom G6 CGM monitor. Those two have the same technology. All the Libre does is it provides it for 14 days, but at flash measurements. So that means every time you have to put your phone against your arm and do the testing. So we feel that is the same pain associated to develop some of these issues like lipohypertrophy, which actually has a lot of long-term complications. This occurs from a lot of subcutaneous detections. So that's why we thought that was the issue. And the reason that our device has none of these issues is that we actually don't use any type of finger prick. All we're doing is we have like these two sub gels on our finger, and those provide an electric current, which is unnoticeable by the patient. And then we actually use infrared light to detect it non-invasively.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then on the reverse iontophoresis, do you have an idea of what your freedom to operate looks like in terms of your intellectual property, whether there are patents published, or if there are scientific papers that might prevent you from taking the technology forward the way you see it?
Yeah, so we're currently with the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Law Clinic, and we have our patent lawyer. So we've actually done kind of some preliminary research on our freedom to operate in terms of reverse electrophoresis. We believe that we have, in our specific application, we have the ability to move forward because we're not using it in the same way that the Gluco Watch in 2006 or some in our competitor Sugar Beet is using it as. They're using it as a technology to actually extract glucose molecules from the finger and from the skin and actually use a different type of technology to test the glucose values. We're simply using it as a modulation technology, which kind of entails a different kind of use of the reverse electrophoresis, which we believe we'll have to use.
Okay, that's great. I recommend you keep working with lawyers who understand this space because it seems like there's a lot out there. So you need thoughtful counsel to help you define specifically what you're doing to make sure that you're still in the freedom to operate space.
Yeah, no,
Thank
I
you.
definitely agree. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
Great. And then Ellen, do you have any questions?
Yeah, so one quick comment. I think you had mentioned on the next slide that the other kind of competitors that are working on non-invasive are releasing 2023. It sounds like you guys are on the same track, considering the FDA. But then my main question is actually I work a lot with pulse oximeters, and there's a lot of issues there with vaccine people protecting with people bring dark skins. Sorry, did I freeze there a second?
Yeah, you did.
Oh, sorry, can you guys hear me? Okay. Oh, sorry about that. Let me repeat that. So I work a lot with pulse oximeters, and there's been a lot of literature about how those are inaccurate for darker skin tones. Will you guys run into the same issue with your technology?
Yeah, so we've seen that there's because of the wavelengths that are used in pulse oxes, they have basically the wavelengths have different kind of readings based on the melanin level in the skin. We're anticipating that we might run into an issue like that, but that will be mostly corrected for in our artificial intelligence algorithm once we get a large portion of data. As we believe the more amount of data that we receive and kind of to get this validation, we'll be able to make a better link and kind of track these nonlinear changes in the patient.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Great job, PF Glucose. We're going to move on to our next pitch, which will be Recor Medical. So with that, Recor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having us today. My name is Alina Kassier. I am a second-year MBA, and I'm joined on this virtual stage by David Dupree, who's a fifth-year MD MBA. We are Recor, and our mission is affordable cancer diagnosis, and we do this with an innovative, reusable biopsy system. So the problem we're tackling, about 10 million people will get solid tumor cancer next year. However, 34% will not have the opportunity for treatment because they can't get an initial diagnosis. This is especially tragic because an early diagnosis is the #1 predictor of survival. Over the next 2 decades, as you can see on the graph on your right, cancer rates will more than double in some regions. Unfortunately, these are also the same regions with the least access to cancer diagnosis tools. For that reason, at Recor, we aim to democratize cancer diagnosis with an accessible biopsy system. For the 3 to 4 million people per year without access to biopsy, we have designed a reusable device that is both affordable and appropriate for underserved population. Our device is innovative in various aspects. First, the thermoplastic body is readily sterilized by steam autoclave, allowing for dozens of reuse cycles. Next, the simplicity in replacing the needle between uses is comparable to reloading the lead in a mechanical pencil. Next, and very important, the springless drive mechanism that provides the force on the cutting needle is unique among biopsy devices, and to our knowledge, unique in any medical device. In its simplest formulation, it is similar to the function of a crossbar. This is central to our IP strategy, given the novelty of the driving mechanism. We have actually filed a provisional patent around this and are in the process of preparing a utility patent with additional claims from the provisional one. These innovations are crucial for the functionality of the ReCore device, including simplifying sterilization, lowering costs, achieving high-quality biopsy samples, and importantly, eliminating the need for maintenance. So let's walk through this Nala story. She's representative of the 34% who do not have access to a biopsy. She's had a call for the past several months. She sees a doctor who orders a chest X-ray. It reveals a lung nodule. However, Nala does not have access to a biopsy. She lives in a country where she is responsible for purchasing the device for the biopsy from third-party sellers or a pharmacy. She simply can't afford it. So with the tuberculosis being common in her region, the doctor prescribes her antibiotics and hopes for the best. Months pass, her cough does not get better. Repeat imaging shows more masses, revealing that her nodule was actually cancer that unfortunately has since spread. At this point, she has lost the best chance for a cure. With ReCore, Nala has a different journey. Imagine that she has access to our device. Therefore, as soon as the nodule shows up on her X-ray, she's able to afford our device and get a biopsy, which shows exactly what's going on and allow the doctors to make the best care plan for her. In this case, surgical removal of the tumor. With her cancer gone, Nala can finally return to her everyday life.
Historically, surgery was done to sample a tumor, but this is highly invasive and highly risky. Now, core needle biopsy is the preferred method for solid tumor diagnosis. However, current devices are inadequate for emerging needs. You might ask why. Innovating to increase access or lower costs runs counter to usual business. Traditional med device manufacturers compete to lock in long-term contracts for premium priced devices in developed healthcare systems. Current devices largely come in two styles: single-use disposable and metal reusable. Disposable devices are significantly more costly over time. You're looking at $70 per biopsy, which is just too high for many people in the world to afford. Meanwhile, metal reusables have prohibitive upfront costs and complex warranty and repair logistics that require infrastructure typically absent from resource-constrained regions. Unlike incumbents, ReCore is focused on innovations that increase access and grow overall market size. Our reusable system has low upfront costs, eliminates needs for servicing repairs, and has the lowest per procedure prices on the market. This will allow us to expand the market to the millions of patients who currently go without diagnosis, a major social victory given its direct connection to lives saved. We wanted to visualize for you exactly what complex warranty and repair logistics look like for the reusable markets right now. If your eyes glaze over when looking at the process map on the right-hand side, it means this slide is working. ReCore has less than 1/10 the part count of its reusable competitors. There is both elegance and functionality in its simplicity. Our device need only be sterilized between uses. No lubrication, no other disassembly. There is no need to otherwise service. And here's why that's important. When thinking about access, having low price point alone isn't good enough. ReCore's zero maintenance reusability is necessary to bridge these access gaps. Let's take a look at how sustainable access for patients in low resources actually looks. As you can see, the zigzags in the gray line indicate repair and replacement events of other reusable devices. However, low resource hospitals don't have the privilege of warranty contracts and complex repair and maintenance infrastructure. When one of their devices fails, they simply lose the ability to do biopsies. Eliminating these maintenance disruptions allows ReCore to bridge over a significant barrier to access. Physicians around the world agree. Access provided by ReCore promises to be game-changing. Other products simply don't come close. In fact, even physicians in resource abundant systems are enthusiastic about ReCore. Some went so far as to say they would switch to our product. This is because we designed our device to give physicians the best user experience possible. Our lightweight body is inherently maneuverable, allows for hands-free use, and reduces tissue trauma. The ability to sub out needles doesn't just allow ReCore's device to be reusable. It can also house several different needle types and is thus capable of a whole range of procedures. Our low part count makes sterilization much simpler. And this device here might look like a pressure cooker, but it's not for risotto. Rather, it's a steam autoclave, the most common means of sterilization in resource-constrained environments. It's more than capable of sterilizing our device between uses. Lastly, the metal in metal reusable devices tends to block out X-ray images. However, our device's thermoplastic body is radiolucent. That means it won't ruin visibility under X-ray or fluoro-based imaging modalities, allowing for a consistently clear picture and precise needle placement. Let's talk about the team behind all of this. We are a multidisciplinary group passionate about preventing the millions of needless cancer deaths that occur each year because of lack of proper and timely diagnosis. Hailing from Yale schools of engineering, management, and medicine, we draw on experience in interventional radiology, healthcare strategy, insurance claims management, and surgical device design. Beyond our professional expertise, we are also personally connected to various underserved areas around the world. Lastly, our advisors draw on decades of experience in the interventional radiology and medical device worlds and have been an invaluable source of wisdom. It's been a year since ReCore was founded, and a pandemic year at that. But in that time, we've incorporated, let me jump back there. We've incorporated, generated and tested 2 different prototypes, including our latest, filed a provisional patent, selected manufacturing partners, and engaged with regulatory consultants who will guide us through the 510(k) regulatory approval process. Now, a side note there, because our device is regulated under Class 2 510(k) approval, our regulatory process will not require any human testing and will be far less time and capital intensive due to prior approval of thematically similar devices. And to fund all of this activity to date, we've raised more than $60,000 of fully non-dilutive funding. Still for all, the Rothberg Prize will provide a vital bridge to ReCore's success and to making cancer diagnosis accessible. We are currently in the process of completing our full utility patent application and synthesizing a small batch of more of these second version prototypes. Next, we'll send these to our collaborators across the United States and Canada for clinical beta testing. Coupling this quality and usability data with our IP, we'll be well poised to raise additional funds, initiate contract manufacturing, and seek regulatory approval. While we currently have funding earmarked for our small batch production and clinical beta testing, the Rothberg Prize will bridge critical financial gaps and bring us that much closer to offering cancer diagnosis to those who need it most. Thank you very much for your attention and for the opportunity to present to all of you today. We leave you now with some of the enthusiasm that physicians feel for ReCore and are delighted to take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Great job, ReCore. With that, Alex, off with questions.
Matt, am I going first?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that presentation. It's definitely very interesting technology and a great space. And given how difficult medical device, especially mechanical medical devices, are in terms of the competition in the US, I commend you for looking at the underserved communities. I do have a question around that in terms of the business plan in serving these underserved communities. I think when you spoke on the slide of how somebody in that community receives care, had the X-ray and then wasn't able to biopsy it, so they got antibiotics, and yes. And then, with your technology, they were able to identify the cancer. I believe in that they had mentioned that, I guess, Nala, in this case, the patient example, in those underserved countries, that she was responsible in paying for the medical device that would be used. So we're talking about a difference, let's say, for a disposable device of about $70, and then yours for about $22, I think you had said.
That's right.
So, so if I'm interpreting it correctly, it sounds like she couldn't afford the $70, but she could afford the 22. And if she were to get the biopsy and then find out it was cancerous, how does the treatment get paid for? I mean, I'm trying to figure out, because if she's actually has to pay for that, how does she pay? Who pays for her treatment? Is there, is there a second step of treatment to that? If she's deciding between $70 and $22, where does the treatment fall?
So when we did some, because we got this information speaking to the doctors in Cameroon, Ghana, and multiple other countries on the continent. That step obviously gets definitely a bit difficult for the patient, but the good news is once at least the cancer has been identified, there are organizations, especially nonprofit organizations in place that would be there to support the patient. But the doctors emphasize that the major step for the patient are literally that step of the biopsy, because that's not the step that's being taken care of by those organizations on the ground. It's like once you have the disease, they will support you, but before you have to be diagnosed. And that's where we come in.
Great, thank you, that's helpful.
Awesome. And Sharon, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, great presentation, and really enjoyed seeing the progress that you guys have made over the last year. I think something that I want to maybe piggyback off in the previous question is, when you guys are talking about commercializing ReCore, at least in the presentation, it seems a bit short what your estimation is for going to market. And then two, what are kind of the factors that you guys are looking at when it comes to the nations that you have assessed? How are you guys going to be figuring out where exactly you want to get started? I think that I was a little bit confused when it came to that go-to-market strategy.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So let me first address how we're going about setting up, market entry. Basically, we're really fortunate in our co-founder, Marley, that he's done a lot of work with Road to IR. That's a nonprofit interventional radiology group that is currently instrumental in making processes like this far more common in Tanzania. And what this means functionally is that we have a direct pipeline to Tanzanian hospitals and to the folks who make the supply chain decisions on what biopsy devices they carry and their volume and all of these other things. And so what this means is that we have people kind of endogenous in the healthcare system there to act as a point of entry. Through Lena and her connections in Cameroon and I think we've also spoken with folks in Ghana as well. We have physicians on the ground who are so enthusiastic about our device that they're willing to serve as local champions. And then further, we have a great support through Murray Ash as one of our advisors. He was the former president of the Canadian Association for Interventional Radiology, and we have a number of connections through him to hospitals and in developing nations around the world. I think your other question was about timeline. Mm-hmm. And we don't anticipate launching in second quarter 2022. This is quite candidly rather an artifact of the slide, in that we didn't find much utility in extending this gray bar very, very far. We know that this process will take time, and we are fully aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Great. And then Alyssa, do you have any questions?
Sure. Excellent pitch. Very, very interesting idea. And the case study was compelling. I have again, a short question and then a longer one. The short one is, will your device provide biopsy sizes that are the same as those that are used in a standard pathology workflow?
Yes. Yes, they will.
And do you do that by using the same coaxial needles that, say, the the metal one you showed, the Magnum, are you using the same needle and just innovating on the triggering mechanism?
Our primary innovation is in the body of our biopsy gun, yes.
Okay, but you'll be using the same needle.
The needles will be standardized, yes. The unique part about the needle will be the adapter that allows it to actually fit into the device itself. But
Okay.
we're not trying to reinvent the wheel there in terms of pathology workflows.
Right, behavior change is often the hardest part at the end.
Right,
right.
right.
And then my other question is, how are you getting to a $22 cost? At what scale do you need to be to have your bill of materials support that? And what types of margins are you getting there?
Let's see, do we have Marley on the call? Sorry, it looks like one of our co-founders wasn't able to call in from a different time zone. So the question is, first, what scale do we need to actually reach these? We found that once we start using injection molding and have a manufacturing capacity of roughly 10,000 units annually, we can actually achieve a margin of roughly 60% on the body itself. In terms of buying needles in bulk, they're actually surprisingly cheap. We found that if we were to order, again, several thousand needles, which would of course be commensurate with the volume of the actual bodies that we're making, given that each of these we're still in the process of validating how long the life expectancy of one plastic body is. We currently very conservatively estimate roughly 50 per device. We found that we can have a margin there of roughly 80%.
Great, thank you.
Hey, this is Marley. Sorry, I wasn't able to unmute there, but it looks like it got fixed. But yeah, I mean, basically what David said is totally correct. We modeled our pricing and COGS out in a wide variety of circumstances so that we could validate that the pricing model works, since that's pretty important to our core story here. But what we actually end up doing is going to depend on what costs we're seeing as we optimize our manufacturing process. So the specific pricing model is definitely going to be refined in the future.
Thank you.
All right. Well, great job, Ricor. We are going to move on to our last, but certainly not least pitch, and that will be Sunset Sanctuary. So Sunset Sanctuary, the floor is all yours. But before I hand it off to you, audience, if you have any questions, because after this pitch, we will do audience questions as the judges are deliberating. So feel free to use the Q&A function. If it's hiding, if you just kind of hover over the bottom of the screen, it should be on the far right. You'll see a Q&A, and feel free to put questions in there for the teams. So with that, Sunset Sanctuary, the floor is now yours for going ahead.
My screen sharing properly?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, fantastic. So we are Sunset Sanctuary, and our mission is to make your home a comfortable and safe place to age. We aim to be the trusted partner in aging at home, and we invite you to join us. So as many of you know, one challenge of aging at home is the risk of falls, and most falls in older adults occur in the home. Last year alone, there were 17 million falls that cost the U.S. healthcare system $33 billion. Difficulties with thorough home assessments and compliance with these recommended modifications mean 8.7 preventable falls in older adults, 8.7 million preventable falls in older adults. We can help 8.7 million people. So this is where our product, Pocket Blueprint, comes in. We use augmented reality to conduct assessments by qualified occupational therapists. We've also created a marketplace for medical equipment and labor. For example, directly through the app, users can purchase grab bars as well as the labor for renovations for their home. But these are more than just statistics. This is the story of Flora Nunez, an 86-year-old woman from the 3,000-person town of Sonora, Texas. We are on a mission to help enable Flora to enjoy her sunset years from the comfort of the place that she calls home. Flora is one of the many folks that's been affected by the over 440 nursing home closures in the United States over the last decade. Given the limited options in Sonora, she decided to age at home. Recently, however, she slipped and fell on a wet spot in the kitchen. She fractured her hip and was admitted to the hospital. As is common with most hospital discharge plans, a home assessment was ordered. A home assessment goes to Flora's home to assess fall risk, like rugs, or determine areas of low light. But Sonora is far away, and as a result, Flora was discharged without a formal home assessment. Medical equipment was sent to her home, however, but once she returned home, within a week, she experienced another fall.
Our product, Pocket Blueprint, partners with the patient for their entire journey through the healthcare system. We take advantage of recent advances in AR technology that allow us to obtain highly detailed depth information. A caregiver is guided by the app in capturing a 3D scan of the home. So Flora's daughter Lupe can scan Flora's home using her iPhone well before Flora's discharge planning needs to begin. With the scan created, Flora's occupational therapist can perform a home assessment from the comfort of their own office. This is done by navigating a virtual space. We'll use object recognition and our highly detailed depth map as inputs to an expert system designed in collaboration with occupational therapists to automatically identify potential problems. Eventually, we hope to apply machine learning to further refine and expand this system. This will reduce the time it takes for the therapist to perform the assessment while improving the consistency and accuracy. Once they've finished, filling the prescription is one click. Lupe and Flora now have a digitally accessible record of Flora's home that notes key problem areas, like loose rugs, areas of low light, and a hazardous shower. Lupe is able to help address some of these issues by adding a touch light and getting adhesives for the rugs, but she plans to call a contractor to install the recommended grab bars for the shower. When Flora is on her way home, Pocket Blueprint is there to ensure that the identified remediations are easy to obtain, understand, and install. We let you see the product exactly where it will be placed in your home. We also include in-app educational materials, one-click ordering, and installation service scheduling to make sure that Flora's trip home is safe, successful, and doesn't involve a readmission. Flora returns home, learns to use her new grab bars and touch lights. She's also taught and reminded about key problem areas in her home and how best to navigate them. We invite you to support us in bringing home Flora safely. So, why would a clinician embrace Pocket Blueprint's technology? One reason is that their travel time is not reimbursable. So getting to more remote locations for home assessments poses a challenge. Being able to conduct a home assessment from their office by annotating scans means more people have access to these services. For durable medical equipment suppliers, many are contracted with facilities for equipment such as wheelchairs and rollators that are covered by insurance. However, many older adults would benefit from non-covered items, ranging from touch lights to grab bars. With the average spend on AJ at home modification being $9,500, suppliers and contractors are eager to capture some of the non-covered market, but don't have a platform to do so. And our revenue will come from solving these pain points directly. Our product grows the market, and we share in that revenue growth with two key stakeholders, the clinician and the DME provider. On the clinician side, we provide a freemium product offering with the standard solution always free to use, but premium features like automated recommendations and integrated patient education available on a subscription model. We expect clinicians to be willing to pay once we've demonstrated efficacy both in saving time for clinicians, allowing them to complete more home assessments, and preventing falls, which improves their quality rating and minimizes any potential financial penalties. Apple Rehab is already interested in rolling out our solution to their clinicians. From the DME provider side, our product offers a fully integrated marketplace with features like customizable product listings, logistics support for ordering and delivery, a user review system, and installation and other aftermarket services. Our platform grows the market by offering older adults a more accessible way of identifying potential modifications to their homes, and our initial 3% commission will be conservative in an industry with frequent 30 to 40% margins for suppliers. We've spoken with Drive Medical, a manufacturer, and Medifair, a supplier, and they're both eager to have access to a marketplace like this.
Great. So based on data from Ericsson and Engelhart, we estimate an $18.3 billion market in home modifications specifically for fall prevention. Taking that 3% revenue share number that Jared had, Pocket Blueprint's maximum revenue is $550 million. If the product only captures 10% of the market related to just falls alone, it's expected to generate $55 million in revenue. Bottom line, the market's sizable and it continues to grow. In terms of competition, Pocket Blueprint uniquely incorporates augmented reality that allows you to visualize medical equipment and renovations in your home. Unlike other technology-enabled medical equipment tools, Pocket Blueprint connects the clinical expertise of the occupational therapist to the device expertise of suppliers and certified installation specialists. There are 5 key tailwinds that make this the time to bring Pocket Blueprint to market. First, iPhone software updates within the last year actually make AR feasible through scans from your phone. Second, COVID waivers are expected to be extended and prove that this service can be delivered effectively remotely. Additionally, reimbursement requires medical equipment in place before discharges occur. And lastly, President Biden's administration has earmarked $400 billion for aging at home. These forces combine to give us some pretty strong tailwinds. And we're the team to bring this to market. Our team includes a licensed nursing home administrator, Kayla Foley, who has over 5 years experience, a physician, Golden Gao, whose work in primary care includes long-term care facilities. And Jared brings 8 years of product development expertise in the financial and health industry sectors. I have 6 years of US and global go-to-market in the post-acute care industry. Together, we strive to be your trusted partner in aging at home.
If we're awarded the Rothberg Catalyzer Prize, that money will go to contracting a UX designer, which begins our go-to-market strategy. Product development will proceed concurrently. In Q3 and Q4 of 2021, we'll leverage 2 key partnerships, the first with Apple Rehab, a 3,000-bed nursing home company in New England, and the second with Drive Medical, a national DME manufacturer. These partnerships will allow us to launch our MVP, collaborate on modification, and eventually expand the app to all 23 Apple facilities, at which point we'll be supporting 10,000 patient discharges annually. By Q1 of 2022, Pocket Blueprint development will be feature complete, and we'll work on diversifying our equipment offering by obtaining additional DME contracts. We'll grow our user base by securing partnerships with hospitals and nursing home companies, and in Q2, we'll assess supplementary revenue streams like insurance stipends, Medicare reimbursements, and subscription payments. As well, we'll begin exploring applying deep learning to what will be a fairly unprecedented labeled data set, namely the assessments that these therapists are generating. From a product perspective, at this point, our goal will be to produce increasingly sophisticated reporting and to get as close to an automated system as possible. Once again, the Rothberg Prize will be critical for our first 3 months of product development. In summary, we're creating an innovative marketplace that leverages augmented reality to tap into a home assessment and modification market worth $18.3 billion. Our diverse and experienced team is well positioned to bring this product to market, and the Rothberg Prize can catalyze that. Join us in imagining a future where Pocket Blueprint has allowed Florida to age safely and comfortably at home while avoiding hospital readmissions. We'd now like to invite any questions.
Well done, Sunset Sanctuary. To kick us off, Ellen, would you like to kick us off with questions?
Yes, absolutely. I'm going to keep my video off because my internet bandwidth is a little shaky. Really appreciate the presentation. I think you guys did a great job, and I love the business model of kind of creating this market for DME suppliers. I'm curious, because right now with your business model, you're getting kind of commission from the DME and then potentially charging clinicians. Is there any path to getting direct kind of funding from the payers who would be, otherwise kind of filtering through the nursing homes and the providers?
Yeah, definitely. So that has certainly been a thought of ours. However, at the moment, we don't believe that our current set of features.
Golden, you just got muted.
I guess it's self-muted. Sorry about that. So at the moment, we don't believe that our current plan for our current set of features would be attractive to payers. I think once we have clinical data that shows actual fall prevention and reduction in readmissions, then we would approach payers because it would be a cost savings to payers if falls can be prevented.
Yeah, I would absolutely start thinking about that early to figure out kind of what level of clinical evidence you'll need or that they'll be looking for at that point.
Great. And then Ellie, would you like to ask our next question? Whoops, Ellie, are you there? Okay, Sharon, do you want to ask our next question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you guys for presenting. Really enjoyed listening to what you guys are saying. And I think, falls is something that's a really big problem in the US, and there's not a lot of great solutions. But I think what I want to understand a little bit more about your innovation company is the build side of what the patients and or families need to do. So how are you guys thinking through that retrofitting or thinking through that recommendation, the architectural piece of what the app is more or less making a recommendation to? Especially if we're thinking about, nursing homes are closing, but older family members typically live in homes that were built maybe in the 1800s, 1900s. They're not that new. And so making changes to them has a lot more regulation. So is that a part of your business model, or you guys are just linking, marketplace type of thing? Angie's List.
So I think we're looking at a holistic business model overall, and we want to leverage CARES first to actually conduct the scans of the home. So getting that floor plan, I think the longer term vision is that could even be included in a person's medical records and considered as part of social determinants of health. In terms of actually using contractors and what expertise we would use, there's a certification. It's a certified specialist for aging at home. And as a general contractor, you can get this unique certification. And we would be specifically targeting folks with that experience and linking them directly to occupational therapists so that the two sides are able to merge together. And so it would be a tailored marketplace where we have people with the expertise on the platform rather than just any general contractor across the board.
Okay, and then just maybe bring it back to where you guys are at right now. Can we maybe go to the slide where you talked about the use of funds? I think I may have missed it or went too quickly. So you guys right now are in the yellow box section, correct? Okay. All right, that's all. It went too fast. I just wanted to read this a little bit more. So thank you.
Awesome. And then Ellie, I don't know if your audio is working or not. Maybe if you want to put your question in the chat, maybe if that's easier. I'll give Ellie just a quick second here. Okay, Sharon, yeah, if you have another question, feel free to go for it.
Yeah, and then the last thing I want to ask, so we're talking about a demographic that has fixed income. How does this again fit into what they're able to afford? I know you said that you're not really going after payers yet, but how does this go into what they're able to afford? Or are you mostly looking at populations where they have familial support, either higher fixed income or, something of that nature in terms of paying for this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's kind of addressing that income disparity has been core to our mission. I think starting out with the partners that we have in Connecticut and the demographic that we're targeting, I think to grow our user base, we would have to target individuals who can afford these type of home modifications. However, we're hoping that as the marketplace grows, as with any marketplace, if it proves successful, then it will hopefully decrease prices for these products on the marketplace, given the efficiencies. When we spoke with DME supplier, they mentioned that a product like this would save their technician time going into the home to measure out spaces and to determine if products fit the home. That would be a real cost savings that could be passed directly to the consumer. So with time, we're hoping that the decrease in prices will prove these products to be more accessible to more people. As well, in speaking with the DME manufacturer, we're also hoping that our platform could be used by either DME manufacturers or suppliers as a way to lobby for more insurance coverage if these products do prove to be, efficacious in actually preventing falls and saving payer money.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. And then I have Ellie's question from the chat. How will you address a possible runaround with the DME providers and installers to try to avoid the 3% given you have a freemium version, especially before you have critical mass using the app?
So if I understand correctly, the runaround that she's talking about is just using our app to discover the products and then going directly to the supplier to purchase them. And this is actually not a solved problem in general, but it's a problem that is effectively solved on platforms like Airbnb and eBay, where just by making it, there's two steps to solve it. Make it really easy to use the platform, make it much easier to use the platform than to go around it. And the other is to detect attempts to do that sort of a runaround. So in our case, that would be making it much easier to purchase the product than to actually contact the supplier. We can obviously never make it impossible to do that kind of a runaround, but we don't anticipate that being a significant issue for us.
Great. So with that, that is all the questions that we have time for. So thank you, Sunset Sanctuary. And thank you to all who pitched today. It's really awesome. I know my mind is like blown by some of the innovation you're all working on. With that, we're going to go into our next stage of this. So the judges, Ellen is going to send you a link to go into the deliberations room. And audience, this is your time to vote on your favorite pitch that you just saw. So there's going to be a poll that's going to pop up that you'll be able to vote on. And then while the judges are deliberating and while the votes are going on for audience choice, this is our time for you, the audience, to ask questions to the team. So feel free to use the Q&A function for answering questions. So just as questions are coming in, as you're comfortable teams for sharing, what is each team, maybe we just go into our pitch order. What is your biggest hurdle at the moment? So share what you're comfortable with. What is your biggest hurdle? And we'll start with mobile memory.
Yeah, that's a good question. You got to give me a second.
No worries.
I say the biggest hurdle at the moment is being able to get the data, because the data we want is being able to track voice samples over a period of time of someone potentially affected by Alzheimer's or some type of other related neurodegenerative disease. So we're doing our best to find those data sets, and those data sets are very rare and only are placed in very select institutions. So that has been a challenge. But once we get over that hurdle, then our venture has a lot of potential to grow.
Wonderful. And then PF Glucose, what would you say is your biggest hurdle right now?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest hurdle for us right now is as we're going through the validation studies, kind of navigating our landscape through the regulatory landscape and identifying what is our need for a clinical trial is kind of what we're kind of focusing on right now, making sure that everything is in order for the FDA and moving forward in that sense.
Okay. And then Recor, what would you say is your biggest hurdle?
So last mile, like supply chain logistics is probably our biggest hurdle once we get regulatory approval and look to establish a footprint in these various under-resourced regions.
Okay, and then Sunset Sanctuary.
I'd say our biggest hurdle right now is product development. We've done a lot of concept validation with the relevant stakeholders, and now we just have to actually build an MVP that we can get in their hands and start getting their feedback on.
Wow, you guys are all very concise. This is this works. Well, awesome. You're all our superstars. I know I am just like in awe of what you just are working on and innovation. Maybe I have maybe one more question. This is more so, maybe if you're in the audience, you can help. But if you can ask for one thing in terms of like resources, maybe it's just what you just pitched for. I know all of you have had put what you use the funding for. Like, what would you say is like your biggest, like, or what would be like the biggest, like, if you had funding or like it's something that would put you over the top or be like a miracle kind of thing that would really, really help your venture. And we can maybe go in reverse order that we just did, or mobile memory if you're, mobile memory if you're ready to go. We'll go back in order.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fine by me. I guess I'd still have to go back to the data collection piece. I think that is just like a huge piece. And if we had the money and the resources, I think that's what would take us using that money and that resources to do the data collection and having that data collection do further studies with the algorithm. That would take us to the next step to ensure that our algorithm is accurate and is distinct from our competitors as well.
All right. And then PF glucose.
Yeah, I think ours is like kind of similar in the sense that instead of data collection, I think the thing is if we had the funding and resources to move our kind of device development aspect to a third party company or do our clinical trials in a third party company, those are there's a lot quicker, a lot faster than doing a clinical trial as per se associated with Yale or to do our research associated with the university. So I think that's kind of, if we had one ask, that what it would be.
All right. And Recore Medical.
At this juncture, FDA approval would open the greatest number of doors.
All right. And then Sunset Sanctuary.
As I mentioned, the AR technology on the iPhone is still fairly new. So if folks have connections or know people with an engineering background in AR, VR, we'd love to talk.
Awesome. I actually might have someone for you, Katrina. So we can talk afterwards. So with that, with no questions in the Q&A, at least I don't see one, feel free. We're going to come back with the deliberations decisions. Feel free to use this time, for a bio break, grab another cup of coffee because it is Saturday morning. And we will be back in just a few minutes. And if you haven't voted in the audience poll, please do that so we can award the audience choice. And we'll see you in just a bit.
Hey, Matt.
Yeah.
I'd like to interrupt to make a special announcement. There is currently a tie on the audience choice winner poll. So finalists, we're going to need you to phone your friends and family, ask them to log in and vote because we're not going to split the audience choice winner.
All right. Well, you have probably 10 minutes or so to do that?
We'll keep it open for another couple minutes. So the pressure is really on you guys to get your friends and family into the audience so that they can vote on that poll.
Well, this will be a fun couple minutes then. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Abby. And we'll see you all in just a little bit.
Sunset Sanctuary, if you're still in the room, I'm not sure if Matt asked you guys this question, but from Anonymous, are you looking at having an open platform for occupational therapists and general contractors to use this AI app, or would you have a few selected permanent contractors and therapists?
Sure. So from the occupational therapy side, that's actually how we plan to grow and start growing the marketplace. It would be completely open to really any occupational therapist who would have an interest in using the tool. From the general contractor side, we would consider there to be a little bit more risk in wanting to vet out some of the vendors. So I think we would start there on a smaller scale and then grow that side out a little bit more slowly.
Great, thanks. Matt, breaking news. We still have a tie. Oh, wait, no. Oh, I'm ready to end the audience choice poll whenever you are. Just say the word.
All right, I think, yep, because we clearly broke the tie right there. So let's do it now.
All right. Audience, we are going to keep you in suspense. You're not going to know who won the Audience Choice Award until the judges come back from deliberation and we're ready to announce the grand prize winner. Sorry, blame Matt, not me.
Okay, and then we have another question that came in for Sunset Sanctuary, if you're here. I don't know. Okay, so what are the challenges you see with the AI model currently right now?
I'm just going to repeat the question. I think Jared's going to take this. Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, the challenge, or go ahead.
Yeah. So I think the thing that we have a lot of confidence in is designing an expert system for this, which I think is not what most people think of when they hear AI. It's kind of a more traditional AI approach as opposed to like a deep learning approach. But deep learning requires that this data exists, and it doesn't exist yet. So designing that expert system is kind of our first step and honestly gets us the features that we are aiming for. I think the big challenge though is as we want to transition to like a deep learning type of model, making sure that we've done our work ahead of time in creating the data in a format that we can use for that. And also understanding the actual scope of data that we'll need. When you're going into a problem like this, like we're not talking about classifying text here, we're talking about classifying space. And that's much less well explored. And so I think the rules of thumb for the amount of data you need to get decent results aren't really there yet, and that's something that we'll be discovering. So that's where there's a lot more uncertainty, but that's also not a requirement for the product we're trying to build. It's a nice to have.
This must be a tough deliberation for your judges, Matt.
as I have both Zoom rooms open right now, I can tell you that all of you are superstar teams and this deliberation is pretty difficult. So I can provide that update.
Yes, excellent pitches, finalists. You should feel really good. While Matt's away attending to the judge's deliberation, we have another audience question from Anonymous for Recor. So Recor, if you could join us again. Great. The question is, could you tell us more about the design of the device? For example, how does the shape help physicians? Good question.
So, not to be overly coy or cute, but we're trying not to comment too much on the shape of the design as we're in the process of releasing our full utility patent, just because in this forum, especially given that this is a recorded session, this counts as a public disclosure. So I can say, kind of vaguely and broadly, it is extremely lightweight. It is very ergonomic. It performs well even when your hands are gloved and slippery. But beyond that, I can't say too much about the actual product design or the internals without really undermining our IP strategy. So thank you for understanding there.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for that answer. We also have a general question from June. Do any of the finalists want to talk about what the biggest challenge has been so far? Opening it up to all finalists, anybody who'd like to chime in. There's future entrepreneurs in the audience who could, learn from your lessons or be inspired by you.
I can go ahead and start. So yeah, one of the biggest challenge we try to address is understanding the fact that there's right now no cure for Alzheimer's. So you can make the case of why would you want an early screening tool for disease that can't be possibly cured? Because you could be just introducing additional stress and anxiety to a person, knowing that they might face an inevitable death of like just losing their memory at the end of life. And so I think making the case that screening for Alzheimer's is still viable and still can lead to patient outcomes is something we're still trying to make the case for. We have the data and the studies to show that there's still benefit to early screening, but of course, some people are a little bit harder to persuade. So that's something we're still trying to wrangle with and hopefully find an answer soon. And hopefully there's a cure for Alzheimer's soon, so that can make our case much, much easier.
I really appreciate the candidacy of your, I don't know if I'm saying the right word, of your answer. Thank you. Any other finalists, feel free to talk about what some of your biggest challenges have been.
So I think part of Abby's phrasing of the question was advice for folks who might be thinking about entrepreneurship. And so a more general challenge is resilience, even in the face of being told no. You're going to get told no a lot as an entrepreneur, and it doesn't really, you have to understand that it doesn't reflect necessarily on the quality of your idea, the quality of you. You know, sometimes as an entrepreneur, yes, you will get it wrong, but it's really important to not take those early rejections or those early stumbling points to heart. It's really important to be able to bounce back and to go and pitch your idea again, or think again about your product market fit, or think again about how you might pivot and make the kind of change that you're hoping to make.
And I'll add to that, find a complementary, diverse team. Right. I think our strength at ReCore is, and diversity means a lot of things. I know diversity usually focus on, typically on race and gender, which, thankfully we are very happy to have on the team. But even in terms of skills and how we work, being able to accomplish all the things we've been able to do, being on different parts of the country and sometimes even the world, is really because our team has a really strong diversity among itself. So don't be alone on this journey. It's not worth it to be alone.
I really appreciate both your answers, but Lena, especially yours, I feel like it ties in so well to some of the messaging that came out of our keynote speaker, Porter Braswell. We had the keynote speak on Thursday. We'll be posting that to Tsai City's YouTube channel in a couple of weeks for anybody who missed it. But the evidence shows that diversity bolsters success, and it doesn't matter what kind of diversity we're talking about. We're talking about across, all spectrums of diversity. So I really appreciate you mentioning that.
All right, everyone. Our judges are on their way back into the room here, so I'm gonna let them come in, and then we will announce the audience choice and the final winner for the Rothberg Catalyzer Prize in just a minute here. Okay, so before we go ahead and announce the winners, just want to give a big round of applause, a virtual round of applause, and also thank you for all of you for sharing your pitches, sharing your work. I know prepping a pitch like this isn't super easy, and also doing it virtually is definitely not easy as well. Also, another big thank you to Jonathan Rothberg for sponsoring this prize and really just helping us with all of you and innovating, especially in this medical space. And yeah, and also thank you to all of our judges. I know I've been super thankful for them behind the scenes and their deliberations, as I know they weren't easy. And also they were reviewing applications all throughout these different things for the past few months. So thank you to all the judges who were part of this process. With that, we do have our winners. So for Audience Choice Award, that will be mobile memory. So virtual round of applause. And for our for the Rothberg Catalyzer Prize, the 2021 Rothberg Catalyzer Prize winner, that'll be Recor Medical. So congratulations to all the teams who pitched. Really, all of you, I guess, blew my mind, but really excited for Recor and all of you. So thank you for that. Audience and presenters as well. We have 2 more prizes for the rest of the day. We have the Sabin Prize and the Yale Innovators Prize coming up for the rest of the day, and then that will be Startup Yale. So the next one, it starts, I believe, at 12:30 or 12. Abby can correct me for that.
Noon.
But we'd love to have you there for the Sabin Prize and also for the Yale Innovators Prize. To participate at the very end of the Yale Innovators Prize, we'll also do a little bit of a celebration for all the winners and all those that pitch. So presenters, and we'd love to have you there at the very end of the Yale Innovators Prize. And with that, thank you for all being here, and have a wonderful, wonderful Saturday.